Good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Ted Caleris, Superintendent of Brooklyn City Schools, and I'm fortunate to be joined by our students in our journalism class and our advisor, Mr. John Holko. This is our episode of the Hurricane Watch podcast. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about all things journalism. So I have Jacob and Summer here, two seniors who have been with Mr. Holko in class for 4 years. Is that correct, Mr.
That is
Holko?
correct, yes.
So guys, tell me a little bit about journalism class and the return of the I paper, and just tell me about class and how you function as senior leaders in that class.
So basically, the Return of the Eye is an online newspaper that was created, I think, during the pandemic. And obviously, there's 4 articles. So there's a news article, featured article, sports, and then it rotates between staff and senior spotlights. And each of those gets published once a week. And I think it's a really good class because it really helps your writing skills, and you're working with other people, your peers and stuff. And I think it's a great class to take.
Summer, how do the stories get assigned? Like, how many kids are in the class? How many students we have in the class? And how do those stories get assigned?
There's 10 kids in the class, and it's split up between 4 groups, which Jacob said. It's between the staff and senior spotlights. There's 2 of us in that group.
Mm-hmm.
There's the news group, where there's 2 people, I believe, or 3. And then there's the features group, which has 2. And then there's the sports group that has 3 kids in it.
So does each group have freedom of what story, what staff to spotlight? Like, tell me about some of the brainstorming. I'm assuming Mr. Holko doesn't say you're going to do this story. Like, tell me a little bit about the creativity and the brainstorming in the class.
So we get to pick, say you're in the staff or senior spotlight group, you get to pick, who you want to interview. And then, you basically have creative freedom to do whatever. And you get to write whatever you want.
Do you have to run those stories? You have to run those stories through Mr. Holko?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we have to stay on the topic of, what the group is and what the topic that you pick is.
So Jacob, tell me a little bit about the draft process in writing the stories. Like, how does that look? I'm assuming you have to check in with Mr. Holko every so often with your story. Tell me a little bit about that.
So for our group, the sports group, we usually prepare an idea on Monday or Tuesday. Usually it's either a game recap from any sport, whether in the fall, winter, or spring, or we would kind of branch off and do some local sports like Cleveland sports or even Columbus.
Mr. Holko, tell me a little bit. So obviously with the pandemic back in 2020, the world changed quite a bit. Like, tell me a little. The world has gone from paper print journalism to online digital journalism. Tell me how you've incorporated that into your class and your philosophy and teaching class.
Yeah, for sure. So the online newspaper is a great avenue for these kids to continue improving their technology skills and to talk to each other, to interview adults who they may not know, to send out emails, which pretty much every group does in advance to get some information. And this was brought to my attention about 5 years ago that this would be a really good idea, because I know we used to have a paper here, but it was a hard copy.
Sure.
And then it went away for a while. And when I got asked that question to bring it back on an online platform, I jumped at the bit right away and said, let's do it. And these two have been wonderful the last 4 years. They've kind of really held the ship steady. And they have done an incredible job of not only doing what they do and improving their work, but also mentoring the new students who are in the journalism class.
Outstanding. What guys, Summer, Jacob, what's some advice that you give the new students to the class, either freshmen or sophomores, first year journalism students? What is some advice that you, as seniors being in this class for 4 years, that you give them when they start feeling frustrated?
I mean, basically you have to work at it. Obviously, it's not a hard class to do. It's practically one of the easier. It's only once a week you're publishing an article.
Right.
But you have to work your way up. So you work in small bits, and then eventually you become the guy who's mentoring.
Summer?
I would say just like, just stay on top of things, like just focus on the work. Just like break it down if you need to and like just go step by step and just stay focused.
Well, I love it. I'm part of your distribution list. I read every article that comes across my email. But in true journalism fashion, I thought it would be fun if our journalism students got to interview Dr. Caleris and Mr. Holko in terms of and kind of switching the script a little bit, and maybe hopefully this leads to something where I would love to see and I would absolutely support it 100% if Mr. Holko and students, you guys develop your own online podcast and kind of go from there. But I'm gonna, if you're up to it, I'd love for you to throw some questions at us.
Yeah.
All right. Summer, you want to go first?
Sure. What makes Brooklyn an ideal school district?
Well, so my role as superintendent is kind of like that 50,000 foot view. And people like Mr. Holko and you guys are the ones that get all the work done. But I have been part of this school district for almost 21 years now. I was a teacher here, athletic director, assistant principal, middle school principal with Mr. Holko, and now superintendent. And I think what I see is one of the strengths of Brooklyn is the collaboration of our staff, the kindness of our students, and just the hard work that I see every day from everybody here. And that, and from my perspective, that doesn't mean we don't have challenges because every school district has challenges, but Brooklyn has always been a home for me, and I love the things that I see and that we do on an every day. And so, you know, being an ideal school district is kind of that lofty goal of how do we attain perfection, even though perfection is not attainable. And what I see every day is that we work every day to get better. And I see that from our cafeteria staff to our teachers to our administrators and to students like you.
I like the fact that the Brooklyn City School District is small. And I grew up in Wadsworth, and we had a pretty big school district. And going for multiple job interviews after I graduated from school with my education degree were big districts too, and something I was used to growing up. But coming to Brooklyn and having my wife also work here is fantastic. And the small family atmosphere that Brooklyn presents, I think it gives opportunities for all students to really grow into themselves. And I know that at the high school, we really do a really nice job of helping these kids prepare for their futures. And I got to give, Jacob a little plug right now. He wants to go into broadcasting.
Yeah.
And I think
So you're all over the podcast idea, aren't you? That's great.
Profession for him. Right now, I think he's kind of leaning towards the University of Akron.
Yep.
Subject to change as is October right now.
Sure.
But working on the radio, I always told him that I had the face for radio, which is why this podcast is audio and not visual. So that's good for all of our listeners. But I think Jacob will do a phenomenal job with his broadcasting degree.
Yeah, great question.
So how long have you two known each other?
All right. So I'm going to tell you a story. So I have known Mrs. Holko a little bit longer than Mr. Holko, and I met Mr. Holko when I was athletic director. And I will tell you the exact moment I met Mr. Holko. So I'm walking by the concession stand outside of the main gym, and I see this guy in the concession stand with Mrs. Holko, because at the time Mrs. Holko was doing Spanish Club, and they used to work the concession stands for a little fundraiser. And I see this guy with the exact same shirt on.
That's not true. This shirt was purchased about 2 months ago.
A very similar shirt to this. And I go, what? You're not a Buckeye? And then at that moment, we bonded. We have a lot of commonalities. Mr. Holko was a teacher when I was in my building when I was middle school principal, and I think out of all teachers in this district, I probably know Mr. Holko the most and very well, and so we've known each other a long time, despite our college football differences. Go Buckeyes.
Oh, we'll get into that here shortly, but I remember when I went to a volleyball game. I finished up my bachelor's degree at Baldwin Wallace in broadcasting. And then, with the market being as bad as it was, I went back to the University of Akron to get my master's in education. And while I was working on my master's, I would come up on the weekends and spend time with my fiance at the time, and went to a volleyball game in the Brooklyn gym. And it was a Saturday, and I was wearing a Michigan jersey. And this gentleman sitting to my left gave me a lot of flack for it. And it turned into a friendly, competitive rivalry between the two of us that has lasted all these years. He mentioned that he's been around here 21 years in this district, and this is my 20th year in the district. So we've definitely known each other for a long time and had a lot of really good memories.
Absolutely.
What are some of your favorite hobbies outside of school?
So, I think for me, family's super important and my priority. So obviously spending time with my wife and my two kids now. My son's 19, going to be 20, daughter's 21, going to be 22. But I enjoy, previous when they were in high school, I enjoyed going to their activities. My son, Zachary, is a freshman basketball coach for us now. So obviously I like going to watch him coach and watching him be part of our staff. But I will say, outside of the family time, I love going to movies. Love just kind of hanging out. I teach for Cleveland State University. So I teach in the graduate education program. So I teach teachers how to be principals. So I teach a couple classes through that program, and I even though it's I enjoy it's a time of commitment for me. I really do enjoy that kind of giving back from that standpoint.
Well, you know that I do nothing but coach. I spent a lot of time coaching in this district. And then when my son became of age to start playing recreational sports and now travel, that's pretty much all I do. I coach travel basketball. I coach travel baseball. I'm also coaching him how to golf and teaching him how to golf, which is a challenge because he's left-handed and I'm right-handed. So that finding golf clubs for an 11-year-old left-handed set
Yeah.
was not very easy. But outside of coaching my kid, which I love doing, if you want to find me in the summer on a hot day, just go to the local golf course and that's where I'll be.
All right. If you could change one thing about yourselves, what would it be?
Well, that question's probably better suited for my wife. However, I would say I sometimes, and I think people who know me well professionally, even personally, I like when things get done quickly and so I would say if I had to say one thing about myself, probably patience with others, because sometimes my vision of things is very different than their vision. I think Mr. Black in the back could probably attest to that a little bit more than most, but I would say patience, and sometimes, just taking a step back once or twice would probably um, be my biggest change, and I'm sure my wife would definitely attest to that,
My OCD is ridiculously bad.
which is probably why we're so similar. Yes.
And there are times where, my wife would even say at home, like, you need to get some medication for that because I'm staring at things for multiple minutes, making sure they're in the same spot. Everything's got a place, everything's got to be symmetrical. That kind of drives me nuts, and it drives her nuts, and it drives our son nuts. So, yeah, the OCD is something I would like to change and fix a little bit. And just please don't ask my wife that same question because the list will be a lot longer.
Who is your biggest role model?
I think I'll rephrase the question a little bit for myself. I think, as my parents were growing up, as I was growing up, my parents were always very instrumental into the things I did. So I probably say my parents, they provided for myself and my brother pretty well. And so I'd go with my parents.
Yeah, I would go with my parents as well, but I'm also going to add my grandfather into that. He passed away at the age of 94. Marine, kind of tough love, showed you how to work, showed you how to treat people. And he was a big instrumental influence in my life growing up. And it's kind of gone down generation to my parents and down to my brother and me, and hopefully we're instilling those same values in our kid as well.
What are your thoughts on the Ohio State Michigan rivalry?
First of all, what rivalry, right? Because Ohio State is the national champ, defending national champ. But I would say over the to be fair to the maize and gold here, that over the last 20 years, the rivalry has ebbed and flowed. And now here's the only caveat: not until the age of NIL did Michigan really start to achieve what they've achieved. But I would say the rivalry is probably even most years.
Well, that's a loaded statement. So I got a couple questions before I go into mine. Number one, why does it take 4 people to spell Ohio? No answer. Okay. Secondly, are you saying that you were paying players prior to NIL?
No, what I'm making the statement is that not until NIL became legal were you able to attract the quality players of the program that were needed.
Okay. All right. You owe me a debt of gratitude.
I do. Why is that?
Because without the pathetic Michigan football team from a year ago, who went into Columbus with a 6-5 record,
Yes.
and barely amassed 60 yards passing,
Yes.
Michigan woke you up.
We did.
Without that embarrassing home 23-point favorite loss 2 days after Thanksgiving.
Mr. Holko.
And I was so full from all the food I ate Thursday and Friday, I was running around the house thinking this is a miracle that came true. So you owe me and every other Michigan fan thank you for your national title.
I do owe you
your Mickey Mouse national title.
I do owe you gratitude on that game. However, I will say, just like any sports seasons are a marathon, not a sprint, and it's how you finish, not how you begin. That being said,
I just remember how the season ended, and that's how I remember the finish.
And his ended earlier than mine. That's all I can say.
With another win over Alabama, which we agree on that one.
We do. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That
I have nothing to do with it.
That being said, you can see how myself and Mr. Holko have developed this back and forth relationship over the course of years. But all kidding aside, it's fun. It's good to have somebody like Mr. Holko leading great students like you. I know when we started this, you were a little nervous. How did it end up?
Feels pretty good.
Any thoughts? Last statement, last question. As students in the class, and you're kind of the outgoing seniors, right? We're still a ways away from graduation, but any recommendations from your standpoint, how you would like to, how could the course improve? How could the program improve? What do you think going, now you know what you know, what would be a great way to set up our future journalists for this class?
I think this class has been seeing a lot more success over the past few years, and obviously when we're gone, we want to see that continue. But I think adding this podcast into the newspaper is a great idea.
Well, here's what I will tell you. If this is something that you truly want to do, I will absolutely make sure that Mr. Holko has the resources, has the equipment, and has the space to do a district podcast student-led. I will absolutely support that. Summer, you have any recommendations?
I really don't. I think adding the podcast, I think that would be great because it would engage the students more and it would, set them up for success in the end. But I think adding the podcast would be an awesome thing.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Mr. Holko, I want to thank you. Any final thoughts or comments?
These two have been special the last 4 years, and I mischievously want to fail them so they can't graduate and they can come back and keep doing it again.
Right.
But I know that they are ready to move on to the next chapter of their lives, and I know that they will both be successful because they are ingrained with a strong work ethic. And that's something that I really love about them. And again, their mentoring, not necessarily by words, but by actions, is really taken positive influence on the underclassmen as well. So I'm going to get them on the recruiting trail here shortly to bring more underclassmen in. But they've been a joy and a pleasure to teach, and it's just one of the highlights of my day is
Outstanding.
when they walk into my room.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. It's been a great learning experience for me and Mr. Holko. I think you and I have some work to do to see what the next evolution of this course looks like. So I want to thank Summer, Jacob, Mr. Holko for taking a little bit of time this morning so I could learn about our journalism program. This is Dr. Ted Caleris, and this has been the latest episode of the Hurricane Watch podcast. Thanks, everybody.